Hello, my friends. Welcome back to our read aloud of the witches. We're going to finish up the book today. We started our chapter. It's Off to Work We Go, but it's a really long chapter, so we kind of broke it into two. If you remember from our last one, Grandmama secretly called the police chief, acting like she was a police chief, and got the address of the Grand High Witch. And they discovered that she lives in a castle in Norway, and that now they're going to come up with their plan of what they're going to do, because being a mouse, you can go anywhere you want. So let's see where we are. All I have to do is put you down somewhere near the Grand High Witch's castle, and you will very easily be able to get inside and creep around looking and listening to your heart's content. I will, I answered. No one will ever see me. Moving about in a big castle will be children's play compared with going into a crowded kitchen full of waiters and cooks. You could spend days in there if necessary, my grandmother cried. In her excitement, she was waving her stick all over the place, and suddenly she knocked over a tall and very beautiful vase that went crashing onto the floor and smashed into a million pieces. Oh, forget that, she said. It's only Ming. You could spend weeks in that castle if you wanted to, and they'd never know you were there. I, myself, would get a room in the village, and you could sneak out of the castle and have supper with me every night and tell me about what is going on. I could, I cried out. And inside the castle, I could go snooping around simply everywhere. But your main job, of course, my grandmother said, would be to destroy every witch in the place. That really would be the end of the whole organization. Me destroy them? I cried. How could I do that? Can't you guess? She said. Tell me. Mousemaker, my grandmother shouted. Formula 86, delayed action mousemaker, all over again. You will feed it to everyone in the castle by putting drops of it into their food. You do remember the recipe, don't you? Every bit of it, I answered. You mean we're going to make it ourselves? Why not? She cried. If they can make it, so can we. It's just a question of knowing what goes into it. Well, who's going to climb up the tall trees to get the Gruntl's eggs? I asked her. I will, she cried. I'll do it myself. There's plenty of life in this old dog yet. I think I'd better do that part of it, Grandmama. You might come as a cropper. Those are just the details, she cried, waving her stick again. We shall let nothing stand in our way. And what happens after that? I asked her. After the new Grand High Witch and everyone else in the castle has been turned into mice? Then the castle will be completely empty, and I shall come in and join you and— Wait, I cried. Hold on, Grandmama. I've just had a nasty thought. What nasty thought? She said. When the mousemaker turned me into a mouse, I said, I didn't become just an old ordinary mouse that you can catch with mousetraps. I became a talking, thinking, intelligent mouse who wouldn't go near a mousetrap. My grandmother stopped dead in her tracks. She already knew what was coming next. Therefore, I went on, if we use the mousemaker to turn the new Grand High Witch and all the other witches in the castle into mice, the whole place will be swarming with very clever, very nasty, very dangerous, talking, thinking mouse witches. They'll all be witches in mouse's clothing, and that, I added, could be very horrible indeed. By golly, you're right, she cried. That never occurred to me. I couldn't possibly take on a castle full of mouse witches, I said. Nor could I, she said. They'd have to be got rid of at once. They'd have to be smashed and bashed and chopped up into little pieces exactly as they were in the Hotel Magnificent. I'm not doing that, I said. I couldn't anyway. And I don't think you could either, Grandmama. And mousetraps wouldn't be of the slightest use. By the way, I added, the Grand High Witch who did me in was wrong about the mousetraps, wasn't she? Yes, my grandmother said impatiently. But I'm not concerned with that Grand High Witch. She's been chopped up long ago by the hotel chef. It's the new Grand High Witch we've got to deal with now, and the one up in the castle and all her assistants. The Grand High Witch is bad enough when she's disguised as a lady, but just think of what she could do if she were a mouse. She could go anywhere. I've got it, I said as I leapt out of my chair. I've got the answer. Tell me, my grandmother snapped. The answer is cats, I shouted. Bring on the cats. My grandmother stared at me. Then a great grin spread over her face and she shouted, It's brilliant! Absolutely brilliant! Shove a half-dozen cats into that castle, I cried, and they'll kill every mouse in that place in 5 minutes. I don't care how clever they are. You're a magician, my grandmother shouted, starting to wave her stick all about again. Here she is, look at her. Knocked the vase over. She's out of control. Look out for the vases, Grandmama. Oh, to heck with the vases, she shouted. I'm so thrilled I don't care if I break them all. Just one thing, I said. You've got to make absolutely sure I'm well out of the way myself before you put the cats in there. That's a promise, she said. What will we do after the cats have killed all the mice? I asked her. I'll take all the cats back to the village, and then you and I will have the castle completely to ourselves. And then, I said, then we shall go through the records and get the names and addresses of all the witches in the whole wide world. And after that, I said with excitement, after that, my darling, the greatest task of all will begin for you and me. We shall pack our bags and go traveling all over the world. And every country visit, we shall seek out the houses where the witches are living. We shall find each house one by one, and having found it, you will creep inside and leave your little drops of deadly mouse maker in the bread, or the cornflakes, or the rice pudding, or whatever food you see lying about. It will be a triumph, my darling, a colossal, unbeatable triumph. We shall do it entirely by ourselves, just you and me. That will be the work for the rest of our lives. My grandmother picked me up off the table and kissed me on the nose. Oh, my goodness me, we're going to be busy these next few weeks and months and years, she cried. I think we are, I said, but what a fun and excitement it's going to be. You can say that again, my grandmother cried, giving me another kiss. I can't wait to get started. And so that is the end of our book, The Witches. Now, Roald Dahl is an excellent author. He writes other books that you might have heard of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda. There's also James and the Giant Peach that he has written. I can't think of the other ones. Hold on. Let me see if they have the list of them in here so I can remember some of the other ones. The BFG, I bet some of you have seen that in the video. So if you enjoyed listening to this, I encourage you to look up Roald Dahl and read some of his other books that are full of excitement and joy as this one was. I will see you again for another read aloud. We'll have to see what it is.